I've always been a bit of a nerd, more of a history buff, really. I love reading about Roman battles, Chinese architecture, the golden age of piracy. If it happened before I was born, then I'll consume everything I can find about it. The way I see it, history is just a collection of the best stories, the ones that stood the test of time. I mean, how can you read Tacitus and not get sweaty palms? I flew out to Wyoming this week to visit my grandfather, who is, sadly, not doing too well. I'll be spending as much time with him as I can from here on out. And now that I can work remotely, thanks COVID, I plan on spending the next month out here. He lives on a big ranch that has been in my mom's side of the family for over 100 years, on the outskirts of a town called Du Bois, pronounced like Du Bois. I loved it out there. I've been visiting the ranch since I was an ankle biter, and I still have fond memories of running in the fields, swimming in the rivers, and spending hours pretending to be an outlaw on the run from a posse. Even as I write this, the view from out my grandfather's kitchen window is incredible, with the setting sun turning red stone mountains to a fiery orange. I've been slowly going through my grandfather's things, cleaning and organizing, and Jesus Christ, he has so much stuff. I guess when you live in the same place for 70 years, you accumulate a ton of bullshit. I found an unopened can of baked beans from the 70s today. I'm tempted to call in some specialists, but being the history buff I am, I'm finding some things that I'm totally geeking out on. One thing I found was an old leather-bound journal that was falling apart at the seams. Not wanting to handle it too much and have a potentially valuable source of family history turn to dust in my hands, I asked my grandfather what it was before I opened it.
"That's my grandpappy's journal,"
he coughed out. Like I said, he's not doing well. Grandpappy was what he called his grandfather, Joe, who was one of the first homesteaders to settle here in Du Bois, which at the time was called Never Sweat. I had a shitload of work to do on the ranch, but I couldn't wait to get my hands on that journal. That's all I could think about all day, which was actually a blessing because I spent the day shoveling cow shit. When my chores were done and dinner was eaten and my grandpa was tucked in for bed, I carefully brought my great-great-grandpa Joe's journal out and delicately flipped through the pages. The first page was dated 1888, and all I could think was, I should be wearing fucking gloves or something. If I ruin this thing, I'll never forgive myself. It was fascinating. The first several dozen pages detailed Joe's life in Never Sweat and the people who he lived and worked with. It was truly amazing to me. But that's not what I wanted to write about. Eventually, I got to a page that reads as follows. July 27th, 1888. Morning. Charles never came back from driving cattle. Not unusual to be gone more than a day or two, but it's been a week, and I fear the worst. May God protect him. July 30th, 1888. Evening. The sheriff hanged a Frenchman today. Came riding in through the middle of town wearing Charles's clothes and thought no one would notice. Funny thing, he didn't seem to hear everyone hollering and shouting at him as he rode through. Just stared straight ahead, off into the distance, and looking like hell. Pale and sweating, and his nose dripping. I suppose he's not right in the head. Lots of men ain't been right since the war. But no damn French served. When they strung him up, he kept yelling, "Les poilus, les poilus, c'est les poilus." Only stopped yelling when the floor dropped from underneath him. I asked another Frenchie at the saloon what he was shouting about, and he said he was yelling, "The hairy one. It was the hairy one." Guess he was crazy after all. Shame for Charles. I liked riding with him. July 31st, 1888. Morning. Someone killed the sheriff last night. No one heard any gunshots or nothing, but when the sun came out, they found his head laying in the mud in the middle of the damn road. His room on the second floor of the jailhouse was torn up. Door hanging off the hinges. Deep gashes in the wood. I suppose if they kept that Frenchman alive just one more day, someone might have heard a commotion. But somehow, no one did. We never found his body. The next few passages were more about ranching, drinking, his pregnant wife, and a particularly long passage about the time a dwarf person came to town. Times were simpler then. Thank God for television. The next day, with a growing obsession with this journal, I started researching the history of Du Bois, Wyoming. The area was initially populated by the sheep eaters. Sounds like distant cousins to the chupacabra. It's not. A group of Shoshone Native Americans who lived in the mountains hunting bighorn sheep. Not too many of them around here these days, but their petroglyphs, rock carvings, can still be seen in the mountains, if you know where to look. Next, the French started creeping in, trapping and trading with the natives for animal skins to bring back to New Orleans. Finally, Americans started settling in the late 1870s. Famous outlaw Butch Cassidy ran a ranch here in the 1890s. And it is the hometown for the actor Matthew Fox of the TV show Lost. Now, thanks to the slow, steady creep of civilization, Du Bois is now home to both a McDonald's and a Wendy's. I love history. That night, after Grandpa went to sleep, I brought out Old Man Joe's battered and ancient journal and drove in again. I started right where I had left off. August 1st, 1888, evening. Them sheep eaters is fine people. Peaceful, wonderful craftsmen, and always looking to trade. Being mountain folk, they rarely use horses, so they can only trade that which they can carry to town on their back. Been thinking about riding up there with some of the boys to see if we can trade on their turf. They might have more goods we don't know about. The other Shoshone aren't as friendly as the sheep eaters, although it seems like the Federals have killed just about most of the natives. There have been some incidents in the past year with the Ute tribes from the south. And we've been seeing some of their scouting parties, more often than I would like. Deputy Linton, I suppose he's the sheriff now, says every man in Neversweat should be alert and report any Ute sightings to him.
August 3rd, 1888. Morning.
Tom Walker, Elijah Kelly, and a Frenchman who just rode into town yesterday named Jean Pichon rode up into sheep-eater country with me last night. What a mess it has been. Our horses are not suitable for the terrain, so our progress has been slow. Elijah's horse lost its footing on loose rock and broke its leg. We had to put the animal down. Pinchon wanted to eat the horse's meat, but Elijah wouldn't let him. We decided not to turn back, but to head a few hours deeper in the mountains, so we wouldn't be near the predators the dead horse would attract. Elijah rode with Tom. We decided to camp under a giant black tree that must have been struck by lightning. One of its massive black limbs was cleaved in two and partly rested on the ground. The main trunk seemed to be hollowed out and had some rot. But when Tom nailed a bit of his tent canvas into the wood, it began to bleed sap. The tree seemed to cling to life. Nothing in God's nature surprises me anymore. That night, we all awoke to our horses screaming. We huddled around the center of our camp with our backs to each other. I couldn't hear anything but the horses for an hour. We didn't sleep much that night. This morning, as I write this, Tom is saying he could see something just outside the reach of our fires, light scuttling around in the darkness. I would say wolves, but the horses weren't touched. Anyway, I don't buy into that boy's stories. We'll press on today.
August 3rd, 1888. Evening.
We reached the sheep eaters today, after leading our horses on foot for most of the day. As the sun got higher in the sky, Tom seemed to be getting sicker and sicker. By the time we reached the sheep eater camp, his eyes were ringed with black, and he was coughing up mucus. The sheep eaters greeted us warmly upon arrival, but when they saw Tom, the welcoming party pulled back and discussed among themselves in their language. One of their elders brought him to a tent, and we were told he would give the boy medicine and allow him to rest. I am happy for him. He looks like hell. The natives have invited us to eat supper with them and spend the night in their camp. We have spent most of the afternoon and night sharing stories, eating, and trading. The trip has, so far, been quite successful for me and Pinchon. If Tom pulls through this sickness, it will have been a boon for him as well. Elijah wishes he hadn't come. The loss of his horse will cost him quite a bit of money.
August 4th, 1888. Morning.
The horses were wild again last night. I suppose they are not used to the mountain sounds. This morning, as we readied ourselves to leave, a native elder came to our group and spoke with us about Tom. They said the sickness wouldn't kill him, but he would not live long enough to recover, and to take him with us would be a death sentence. We were confused and asked what was going on. Another native, who is better versed in our tongue, told us.
He broke the bark of the bone hunter's tree. He will be sick
until the day he dies, which will be soon. But it will not be the sickness that kills him. Whoever breaks the bark of the plague tree is marked for the bone hunter.
The sheep eater told us to either send him south while we headed north back to Neversweat, or to tie him to a tree, or shoot him in the leg so he can't follow us. They said if another one of us kills him, the mark would be passed to us, and no matter what, we should never bring him back into town. Pinchon, Elijah, and I, being good, clean Christian folk, will thank our hosts, put Tom on the back of his Pinchon's horse, and laugh at the natives' heathen beliefs as soon as we are out of earshot. I still need to finish readying the horses, but it's hard not to giggle around a bunch of grown men who believe in fairy tales. It will probably take us an extra day to get back to town. Our horses are overloaded with our new goods, and Tom will slow us down.
I heard my grandfather retching in his bedroom, so I stopped reading there for the night, carefully tucked the journal away, and prepared some tea and medicine for my grandpa. The next day, I started researching into different Shoshone myths and legends and monsters, trying to figure out what the bone hunter was. I suspect the language barrier led to a mistranslation, because I couldn't find anything of that name. Although I did find something that sounded similar. The translation called it a beggar skeleton, and gave a short story that described its origins. The story is this. A group of Native American hunters were returning home from a successful hunting trip. 3 hunters had shot a few rabbits, a wolf, a bighorn sheep, and a bison. They stopped one night on their journey home and made a fire under a large tree to cook their dinner. While they were eating, they heard footsteps approaching them and raised their bows. Into the firelight stepped a skeleton. The skeleton told the hunters,
"Do not fear me. I only come to ask for meat, for I am very hungry."
The hunters had more than enough meat to share, and happily gave some to the skeleton, which it chewed for a moment, then pulled from its mouth with bony fingers. The skeleton asked the hunters,
"My teeth are old, and I have a hard time chewing. May I have the teeth from your wolf?"
The hunters nodded, and the skeleton replaced its teeth with the wolves. The skeleton chewed and ate some more meat, then turned back to the hunters and said,
"I am very cold as I have no skin. May I ask for some of the skins you carry?"
The hunters, too afraid to deny the skeleton what it wanted, handed over the bison skin, the thickest of them all. The skeleton wrapped himself in the skin and said,
"I have no ears, so I cannot hear my enemies approaching. May I have some of your rabbit's ears?"
The hunters agreed, and the skeleton attached the ears to the skin it wrapped around its skull. The skeleton asked again,
"I have no way to protect myself. May I have the horns from your sheep?"
The hunters, too afraid to say no, allowed the skeleton to have the horns, and the skeleton fashioned them on its head and turned to walk away. 2 of the 3 hunters, feeling they had given away all the best spoils from their hunting trip, stood and trained their bows at the skeleton's back as it walked away from them. They fired, lodging the arrows deep into the bison's skin. But the skeleton turned and faced them, unfazed.
Why did you give me such gifts, only to shoot me in the back?
The skeleton asked, its bones creaking as it walked towards the hunters.
You think these gifts belong to you, but they do not. Nature belongs to all.
In a flash, the amalgamation of animal parts sprang forward and disemboweled the two hunters that had fired the arrows. The remaining hunter threw himself to the ground in supplication, begging for mercy. The skeleton reached out a bony hand and lifted the man's chin.
From now on, part of each kill will be offered back to nature. Otherwise, I will return. I will track you, and I will make sure your body is returned to nature instead.
The skeleton croaked.
And because of your untrustworthiness, my home in the mountain will be off limits to your people. You will not hunt or forage near the black trees.
The hunter nodded, tears streaking down his dirt-covered face, and the skeleton walked away. The translation continued to describe the legend of the skeleton beggar and the consequences of breaking the promises made to it long ago. The reading said if a person hunted on the skeleton's land or damaged the skeleton's land in any way, a curse would fall upon that person. They would become sick, slow, and tired. They would cough up mucus and blood, and in their sluggishness, their footsteps would fall heavier. Once the curse had fallen on someone, they would begin to be hunted by the skeleton. The skeleton beggar would stalk the cursed person, tracking them by their coughs, footprints, and the trail of blood and mucus left behind. The beggar always made his kill within 7 days. If a cursed person is killed by another person, then the curse would pass on to the killer. So yeah, a lot of the details between these two stories line up. I'm pretty sure Bone Hunter equals Beggar Skeleton. I don't really believe in myths like this, but it's pretty cool to see the old stories and superstitions play out in this journal. If I was a betting man, I would place my money on this Tom guy just getting sick at the wrong time. I mean, there are people who shit in buckets and use communal rags as napkins in bars. Not exactly the cleanest bunch of people. No offense, great-great-grandfather. Please don't haunt me. The next day, I picked up again where I left off.
August 5th, 1888. Morning.
Horses wild again last night. This time, I think something was actually out there. We sat in the dark and listened as rocks slid in the blackness around us. Eventually, we gave up on the idea of sleep, and Pinchon lit a fire for us. The orange glow of the fire didn't give us more than 20 to 30 feet of light, but we could follow the horse's eyes. They knew something was out there with us, and it wasn't a wolf. Maybe a bear, but it didn't feel clumsy enough. Either way, none of us slept.
August 5th, 1888, midday.
Didn't make it far. We lost another horse, slipped, and fell into a ravine. Pulled down Elijah with it. They made a real mess at the bottom. That horse was saddled with most of our goods. We're gonna set up camp early and try to get down there to bury Elijah and retrieve our goods. He was a good man. Least we can do is a Christian burial.
August 5th, 1888, evening.
Buried Elijah down in the ravine and fashioned a cross for him. Pinchon and I said a few words for him and said a few prayers. He was a good man who didn't deserve such a meaningless death. We salvaged most of our goods and brought them back up to where we made camp, near the top of the ravine. It started to get dark, and I'm as tired as the dead. I'll be asleep soon. Tom is looking worse than before. He's coughing up blood. I'm not sure he'll make it back to town. I'm not sure he'll survive whatever he has, even if we get him back to town. Hopefully a night of sleep will do him well.
August 6th, 1888, morning.
Tom died last night. Found him this morning, stone cold and white as snow. This trip has become hell. 2 good men dead. I guess Tom was just sick. But if we was in town, then maybe a doctor could have helped him. I don't know. Just feel guilty is all. Pinchon seems to have gotten sick and is looking like hell. Of course, he's too sick to help me dig another grave. I guess on the bright side, he and I are going to be making good money with the extra shares from Tom and Elijah. Time to dig another grave.
August 6th, 1888, midday.
I killed Pinchon. Crazy French ratbag tried to hit me in the head with a shovel while I was digging Tom's grave. I lunged forward to get another shovelful of dirt at the right moment, and he hit me in the shoulder. It hurt like hell, but gave me enough time to turn around and fire my pistol at him. Plugged him square in the chest. Didn't take too long for him to pass. Was talking in French the whole time. I think the whole time he was planning on killing us and taking our profits. Jib-faced fraud. Buried Tom. Not digging a grave for Pinchon.
August 6th, 1888, evening. Feel like hell. Can hardly breathe. Coughing up bile. Need to rest for the night. Should get into town tomorrow. August 7th, morning. I'm sicker than I thought. I was hallucinating last night. I kept seeing shapes dart behind trees. Weird shapes. Almost human. Long, thin legs, but had a burly torso. Had horns or antlers or something, and it was fast. I'd see it disappear behind one tree and walk out from behind another. Quick, blink and you miss it. I'd never been so scared in all my life. As the fires died to embers, the shape would get closer. I could hear it, just like that first night, scuttling around just outside the reach of the fire's light. Rocks sliding around me in all directions. the 2 remaining horses screaming the whole while. I know it's just a hallucination. Too many Indian stories, along with a brain hot with fever. I'll press on to town today. August 7th, 1888, evening. Made it to town, checked on my wife, unloaded the 2 horses, and went to the sheriff to tell him what happened. He said 2 days after we had left town to find the sheep eaters, a rider from Cody, Wyoming, came to him with a bounty on Jean Pinchon. Said he had killed 2 men in Cody over a game of cards. He said if I could bring back the body, I'd get the bounty on him. After the sheriff, I went to see the doctor. He told me to get some rest, drink water. August 8th, 1888, morning. Last night, I laid in bed next to my Tilly, my wife, the mother of my unborn child, the love of my life. I felt the baby kick and laughed with her as we watched her belly bulge. After Tilly was asleep, my thoughts turned dark. Tomorrow will be 7 days since Tom got sick. I know I shouldn't believe in this horse shit. The Bible says so. But what if? What if I led something back here? What if I put my wife and my child in danger? I can't cope with that. I'm leaving town today to get Pinchon's body. It's a 2-day round trip. If I die, I will have kept my family safe. If I don't, well, I'll have a little bit of money for my troubles. I'm leaving the journal here. I'll be back in 2 days to kiss my wife. That was the last entry in the journal. Who is this guy, Stephen King? Talk about a letdown of an ending. I asked my granddad that night how his grandpappy died. He said Indians killed him, and left it at that. I dove into more research trying to find a record of his death, but couldn't find anything. It was driving me mad. I had to learn more about what happened. Then I realized the sheep-eater camp they visited couldn't have been more than 50 miles away. Probably closer than that, considering their slow rate of travel in the mountains. The black tree they found was probably even closer than that. If I did a little more research, talked to some local natives, I could probably find where it was. I think I might plan a nice little day trip to the home of the bone hunter.